Hello everyone, and welcome to Wisdom and Wealth, your channel dedicated to navigating life's complexities with both insightful wisdom and practical financial strategies. If you are new to our channel, please consider subscribing and give us a like. This small act helps us grow and brings you more content like this. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling diminished, thinking, why did they speak to me that way? It's a familiar sting, isn't it? The feeling of being ignored, dismissed, or even outright disrespected. But what if I told you that the disrespect you're experiencing might be something you're unconsciously inviting, or at least allowing? In this video, we're diving deep into the heart of the matter, understanding why people treat you the way they do, and more importantly, how to reclaim your personal power without resorting to shouting matches or stressful confrontations. This is about changing the dynamic subtly but significantly, so stick around. When you lack strong, well-defined personal boundaries, people can sense it almost instinctively, and they respond accordingly. Disrespect doesn't always manifest as loud arguments or aggressive confrontations. Often, it creeps in subtly. Think about it, people interrupting you mid-sentence, casually dismissing your opinions as if they don't matter, expecting you to always say yes to their requests, or consistently undervaluing your precious time. In the beginning, you might even excuse it, brushing it off as a one-time occurrence. You might even start to question yourself, thinking, maybe I'm just being overly sensitive. But over time, a pattern begins to emerge, and it always stems from the same root cause: you haven't clearly defined and enforced your boundaries. Remember, boundaries aren't rigid walls designed to isolate you, they are clear signals that communicate where your self-respect begins. And when those signals are weak, ambiguous, or simply missing, people naturally assume there's little to no cost associated with disrespecting you. Why does this happen? Because humans are wired to test limits, to explore the boundaries of social interactions. It's not always a malicious intent, it's more of an inherent instinct. In virtually every social interaction, people are constantly calibrating, subconsciously assessing where the power dynamics lie, where the perceived strength is located, and where the leadership truly stands. If you consistently present yourself with an overly eager smile, readily agree to everything that's suggested, passively tolerate disrespectful behavior, and actively avoid confrontation at all costs, you're inadvertently teaching others that your comfort, your needs, and your boundaries simply don't matter. You're essentially sending a silent message: it's okay to treat me this way, I won't object. This is precisely why always being nice can backfire spectacularly. Niceness without clearly defined boundaries isn't genuine kindness, it's often a form of self-betrayal. And people can sense this discrepancy. They instinctively feel the energy of someone who's afraid to say no, who's desperate to maintain the peace at any cost, and who values external approval far more than their own personal dignity. And when that's the prevailing dynamic, respect invariably exits the room. But here's a crucial truth that many people may find difficult to hear: people ultimately treat you how you treat yourself. If you consistently fail to honor your own limitations and boundaries, no one else will. If you don't place a high value on your own time, others won't either. If you don't actively speak up for yourself and your needs, you'll inevitably become an easy target. It's not necessarily because people are inherently evil or malicious, it's simply because power dynamics are always at play, whether we consciously acknowledge them or not. And silence, in most contexts, is rarely interpreted as strength. More often than not, it's perceived as surrender, an indication that you're willing to cede your power. However, the profound shift begins when you finally start to say, that's not okay with me, that's unacceptable. When you cease endlessly explaining or justifying your boundaries and start consistently enforcing them, when you allow people to experience the discomfort of your no without softening it or apologizing for it, that's when the game changes. It's not because you've suddenly become aggressive, rude, or unreasonable, it's because you've finally started to value yourself authentically. And when that transformation occurs, people inevitably notice. They adjust their behavior, their expectations, and their treatment of you. They begin to respect you, not because you begged for it, pleaded for it, or demanded it, but because you're projecting an unwavering self-respect. Remember, respect isn't something you chase, it's something you command through the way you carry yourself and the invisible line you draw that unequivocally communicates, "I don't tolerate anything less than respectful treatment." Before moving on, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Seeking approval might seem harmless, and even noble, at first glance. The desire to be liked, accepted, and validated is a fundamental human need. However, when the pursuit of approval becomes your primary emotional currency, you begin to pay a steep price: your personal power. Constantly striving to please others gradually chips away at your inherent presence. It softens your edge and inadvertently communicates, "Your opinion of me matters far more than my own opinion of myself." And whether people consciously realize it or not, they instinctively sense this imbalance and they begin to devalue you as a result. When you live primarily for approval, you inevitably start editing yourself, suppressing your true thoughts and feelings to conform to what you believe others want to hear. You laugh politely even when something isn't genuinely funny. You readily agree even when you fundamentally disagree. You hesitate to express what you truly think and feel, for fear of disapproval. Over time, people stop actively listening to you, not necessarily because they're intentionally rude or dismissive, but because you've subconsciously trained them that your voice and your opinion simply don't hold significant weight. You've demonstrated that you're willing to bend and contort yourself to fit their comfort zones. And in doing so, you become easily forgettable, lacking any distinctive presence. The incessant pursuit of approval dilutes your essence. It strips away your authenticity. And without authenticity, there's no true gravity, nothing substantial for others to genuinely respect. People are naturally drawn to those who stand firm in their convictions, who are unapologetically themselves, even if they don't always agree with them. Why? Because that kind of unwavering self-assurance is relatively rare in today's world. It's magnetic, it's compelling, and it signals an inner strength. However, when you need others to like you before you can even begin to like yourself, you're essentially handing them the steering wheel of your life. You're allowing their reactions, their opinions, and their approval to determine your self-worth. That's a fundamentally dangerous game to play because people are inherently fickle. Their approval can be given freely in one moment and then capriciously withdrawn in the next. And when you're addicted to that external validation, you're constantly at their mercy, perpetually vulnerable to their shifting whims. The worst part is that the more intensely you chase after approval, the less of it you'll actually receive. People intuitively sense desperation, even if you attempt to mask it well. They can instinctively tell when someone is performing for an audience rather than simply being their authentic selves. And instead of admiration, it breeds either discomfort or, even worse, quiet contempt. Because deep down, people genuinely respect those who respect themselves first and foremost. And if you're constantly striving to earn their favor, it silently communicates that you don't believe you're enough without their validation. The transformation begins when you consciously release the desperate need to be liked by everyone. Not in a reckless, cruel, or antagonistic way, but with a quiet, unwavering certainty. You speak honestly, even when it's uncomfortable or potentially unpopular. You allow people to disagree with you, and you don't shrink back in fear or defensiveness. You consciously stop chasing fleeting approval and start actively choosing what aligns with your values. You carefully choose where your energy is directed. You discern who genuinely deserves your precious time and attention. And in that fundamental shift, you naturally become someone others instinctively want to respect. Not because you begged for it, manipulated for it, or demanded it, but because you've unequivocally demonstrated that you don't need it to stand tall and unwavering in your own intrinsic worth. This is how you reclaim your power. Before we go further, please like or subscribe. When your self-image is inconsistent, fluctuating wildly depending on external circumstances, people simply don't know what to make of you, leaving them confused and uncertain. This often leads them to test you, challenge you, or even outright ignore you. That underlying confusion creates an opening for disrespect to seep in. One moment, you present yourself as confident and assertive, clearly communicating your boundaries and expectations. The next moment, you're passive, indecisive, uncertain, or overly agreeable, readily sacrificing your own needs and desires to appease others. That kind of fundamental contradiction sends profoundly mixed signals. It communicates to people that the version of you they're currently seeing isn't stable or reliable. It can be easily pushed, altered, or manipulated. Remember, humans naturally respond to consistency. We're wired to seek out patterns, especially in the complex realm of social dynamics. When someone consistently presents themselves with unwavering self-respect, they naturally command respect from others. But if your energy constantly wavers, if you verbally claim to value yourself but your actions consistently scream insecurity, people simply won't take you seriously. They'll ultimately follow what you do, not what you say about yourself. So when your self-image drastically changes based on who you're around or how much approval you're currently receiving, you inevitably lose credibility in the eyes of others. And once that crucial credibility begins to crack, respect inevitably erodes along with it. The inherent danger of an unstable self-image is that it renders you perpetually reactive, constantly swayed by external forces. You begin performing for the fleeting approval of others rather than living authentically from your core values. You excessively over-explain your decisions, endlessly justifying your choices to those who may not even care. You apologize excessively for your perfectly valid opinions, as if simply expressing yourself is somehow an imposition on others. You dress, talk, or act in ways that feel forced, unnatural, and inauthentic, all in a desperate attempt to fit into a perceived mold. But every time you engage in those behaviors, you inadvertently send out a quiet, self-deprecating message: I'm not entirely sure who I really am, so I'll implicitly allow you to decide that for me. That's when people begin overstepping your boundaries, questioning your inherent worth, and perceiving you as someone they can easily mold to their own advantage. Remember, true confidence isn't loud, boisterous, or ostentatious, and it certainly isn't perfect. It's simply stable, rooted in a deep knowing of who you are and a resolute refusal to drift aimlessly every time the winds of external opinions blow. When your self-image is clear, unwavering, and consistently communicated, others naturally adjust their behavior to match your unwavering standard. They know what to expect from you and, more importantly, they know what behaviors simply won't be tolerated. That kind of unwavering presence sets the tone for every interaction. You don't have to demand respect or explicitly spell it out, you naturally become the kind of person people instinctively respect. If you desire others to treat you with consistency and unwavering respect, you must first give that gift to yourself. That means aligning your actions with your deeply held values, consistently presenting yourself as the same authentic person regardless of who's watching or not, and resolutely refusing to betray your core identity for the sake of temporary approval or fleeting acceptance. The ultimate goal isn't to be universally liked by everyone you encounter, it's to be solid and secure enough in yourself that people can instinctively feel your unwavering self-respect before you even utter a word. That's what earns long-term respect, not a carefully crafted image, but genuine integrity. Now is the perfect time to subscribe. Respect always starts from within. People often mistakenly search for external validation, believing that if they act in a certain way, dress in a particular style, or say all the right things, others will inevitably treat them better. But that approach is fundamentally backward. The truth is that people tend to mirror how you treat yourself. If you confidently walk into a room radiating quiet certainty, firmly uphold your boundaries, and act as if your time, energy, and presence genuinely matter, others inevitably notice and respond accordingly. The initial step in reclaiming your personal power isn't to demand respect from others, but to cultivate and nurture it internally. Self-respect is the bedrock foundation of all personal power. When you truly respect yourself, you cease tolerating the subtle, insidious forms of disrespect that most people habitually overlook. You no longer passively laugh along at jokes that subtly belittle you. You refuse to accept half-hearted apologies that lack genuine remorse. You stop giving endless chances to people who consistently cross your clearly defined lines. You begin presenting yourself with an energy that unequivocally communicates, "I'm not here to be tested or manipulated. I know precisely who I am and what I stand for." And you resolutely cease endlessly explaining yourself to people who aren't even actively listening or genuinely interested in understanding. That's not arrogance, it's simply clarity. It's the kind of unwavering energy that makes people pause and carefully consider their words before speaking to you in a condescending or disrespectful manner. Self-respect fundamentally changes the way you move through the world. It subtly sharpens your posture, your tone of voice, and the intensity of your eye contact. You no longer feel the need to constantly prove yourself or justify your existence because you're not desperately chasing external approval. You've already granted yourself that approval from within. That's where the real transformation occurs. Because most disrespect doesn't originate with loud, overt insults, it begins with subtle dismissals, with people perceiving you as someone who can be easily overlooked. But when your self-image is solid, unshakable, and radiates from within, you naturally command more space and attention. Not because you're louder or more demanding, but because your presence carries a certain weight, a quiet authority that cannot be easily ignored. This profound transformation doesn't require you to become someone you're not. It requires you to consciously stop shrinking, to stop minimizing yourself for the comfort or convenience of others. When you begin to treat your thoughts, your time, and your energy as the valuable resources they truly are, others will inevitably learn to do the same. That's the essence of reclaiming your power and flipping the dynamic. You transition from desperately seeking external validation to radiating intrinsic worth from within. And once that happens, people will either rise to meet you on your level or gradually fall away because they can no longer access you in the same manipulative way. Power isn't about dominance or control, it's about direction. When you consistently carry self-respect, you set the direction for how others treat you. You no longer react defensively to every slight, real or perceived, because you deeply understand that your inherent value isn't tied to their fleeting opinions. You cease attempting to manage their behavior and instead focus on mastering your own responses. And in that fundamental shift, you stop chasing respect and begin embodying it. In every interaction, there's an unspoken frame, a subtle psychological lens that ultimately determines who holds the power. That frame can be shaped by a multitude of factors: tone of voice, body language, timing, and underlying intent. Most people don't consciously realize it, but the person who controls the frame ultimately controls the level of respect they receive. If you walk into a room feeling unsure of yourself, anxiously waiting to see how others will treat you before deciding how to act, you've already lost the frame. You've relinquished your personal power and placed it directly in their hands. But if you set the tone from the outset with calm confidence and unwavering emotional clarity, you become the anchor that others instinctively adjust to. Controlling the frame doesn't mean dominating or manipulating people. It simply means consciously choosing how you interpret and respond to various situations, and resolutely refusing to allow others to define that reality for you. For example, if someone attempts to insult you or make a passive-aggressive comment, you don't react emotionally or defensively. You pause, maintain eye contact, and allow the silence to stretch out. That action alone can subtly but powerfully shift the power dynamic. Why? Because you're consciously refusing to play their game. You're resolutely staying within your own frame of grounded strength and unwavering self-assurance. That's profoundly intimidating, in the best possible way, because it unequivocally demonstrates that you won't be easily shaken or manipulated. Most people inadvertently lose power not because they're inherently weak, but because they relinquish control of the frame far too quickly. They become defensive when challenged, nervous when questioned, or excessively apologetic when attempting to set reasonable boundaries. All of those behaviors inadvertently communicate to the other person, "You have more control over my emotional state than I do." And once that belief is established, respect begins to gradually fade away. But when you maintain your composure, when you speak with intention, move with purpose, and radiate inner calm, you begin to subtly control the emotional atmosphere around you. People feel it, even if they can't consciously articulate why. They instinctively adjust their tone of voice, their posture, and their words because you've silently set the standard for respectful interaction. The key is to consciously stop reacting and begin leading with presence, leading with poise, and leading with unwavering self-assurance. You don't need to argue, justify, or constantly prove yourself. In fact, the more intensely you try to convince others of your inherent worth, the less they'll actually feel it. Real authority isn't explained, it's intuitively felt. And it's felt most strongly in those who can steadfastly hold their frame even under intense pressure. That's the fundamental difference between someone who naturally commands respect and someone who constantly chases after it, desperately seeking external validation. You reclaim your personal power when you become unshakable in your self-worth. When you resolutely refuse to allow small minds to drag you into their chaotic drama. When you cease giving people the script to control your emotions. Your frame becomes your fortress, not because it's rigid or inflexible, but because it's deeply rooted in unshakable self-respect. And once you master that internal dynamic, people don't simply respect you, they naturally begin to follow your lead. Finally, remember to like and subscribe to help us reach more people. Power isn't something you beg for, shout about, or try to force upon others. Real power, the kind that silently commands respect without uttering a word, is projected from within. It's an internal presence that radiates outward, subtly influencing every interaction. You can intuitively feel it in someone before they even speak. It's evident in their posture, their stillness, and the way they confidently take up space without needing explicit permission. It's not about being loud or aggressive, it's about being deeply rooted in who you are, your values, and your inherent worth. When you project unwavering self-assurance, people instinctively adjust their behavior. They sense that there's something within you that cannot be easily pushed aside, manipulated, or ignored, and that understanding alone sets boundaries without you ever having to utter a word. One of the biggest misconceptions is that respect is earned through constant action, by continuously proving yourself over and over again. But more often than not, it's the conscious absence of neediness, the lack of desperation for external validation, that truly earns respect. When you don't desperately need validation to feel whole, when you don't flinch under pressure, when you can readily walk away from any situation that disrespects you, that's true power. Not because you're consciously trying to impress anyone, but because you're demonstrating with every action that you belong to yourself, first and foremost. People pay close attention to what you're communicating silently. Your energy introduces you long before your words do. If you walk into a room feeling anxious, slouched, and hesitant, people will instinctively feel it. And whether they consciously realize it or not, they'll interpret it as uncertainty, which inherently weakens your presence. But if you move with intention, make direct eye contact, speak slowly and deliberately, and resolutely refuse to over-explain yourself, you create a certain gravity, a subtle pull that makes others pause and carefully consider their words before speaking to you casually or dismissively. You're subtly signaling, I know who I am, and I don't need your validation to confirm it. This is why silence can be such a powerful tool. Stillness can be incredibly potent. A person who can comfortably sit in silence without feeling the desperate need to fill the void often has more control over the situation than the one who speaks the most. Power isn't in the noise, it's in the restraint, the ability to allow someone else to talk themselves in circles while you calmly listen, observing with quiet composure. Maintaining a calm and composed demeanor is one of the most powerful positions you can consciously take. To project true power, you don't need to fundamentally change your personality. You don't need to become cold, aloof, or fabricate a false sense of confidence. You simply need to stop outsourcing your self-worth to the opinions of others. When you begin to treat your own time, your own words, and your own attention as the valuable resources they truly are, people will inevitably respond in kind. The ultimate goal isn't to intimidate others, but to radiate a presence so strong and authentic that respect becomes the natural and automatic response. Because in the end, you don't have to force people to respect you. You simply have to demonstrate that you respect yourself, and allow that unwavering energy to do the talking. Respect isn't given to the loudest voice or the most agreeable face, it's given to the one who deeply knows their inherent value and unapologetically lives it. If people are consistently disrespecting you, it's often a reflection of the signals you're inadvertently sending, whether consciously or not. But the power to change that dynamic doesn't come from demanding better treatment, it comes from embodying it first. When you resolutely stop tolerating disrespect from yourself, the world will inevitably begin to follow your lead. You don't need to fight for respect, you need to become the kind of person who naturally attracts it through clearly defined boundaries, unwavering consistency, calm authority, and unshakable self-respect. Flip the power not by trying to control others, but by mastering how you show up. Because once you begin to honor yourself authentically, you'll subconsciously train the world to do the same. And that's when everything truly changes. Thank you for joining us on Wisdom and Wealth. Remember to like and subscribe for more insights into building a richer, more fulfilling life, both financially and personally. We'll see you in the next video.